ham, eat the nasty butcher man.
Hello and welcome again. Really need to get this lockdown here sorted. Welcome to episode 4 of the Oink blog and Beyond's YouTube channel. This is a very short video compared to previous ones, and that is simply because we are sticking the rose tinted glasses on to remember a comic from my childhood which I'm going to cover now on the blog, and that is Wildcat. Starting off actually with what I have inside issue 1 here, which is the original free preview issue. This was given away in the very last issue of Oink. It was created by a man named Barry Tomlinson, who readers of the blog will already be very familiar with his work as far as Ring Raiders and Supernaturals goes. He's also released a book recently called Comic Book Hero about his time in the comic book industry. I have it, let me see. I have it here. The thing is, Barry, this is the kind of pedigree that Wildcat came from. He was the editor of comics such as Roy the Rovers, Eagle, Scream, Speed, Teenage Mutant Hero, Turtles. Whenever a new comic comes along, I say new, shouldn't be doing that. When a comic comes along to the blog, it'll be read in real time, as you know. The previous one was Visionaries on a monthly basis from Marvel UK. Before that was Supernaturals. And before that we've had things like Jurassic Park and Ring Raiders. On the blog's Instagram, at the Oink blog, every Thursday you'll see photographs of Marvel UK's Transformers comic. Now, it's meant to be at the end of each month, those weekly photographs and roundups of those comics are meant to then be further rounded up on the blog. I've let that slip over the course of this year. I will get caught up, but the first year and a bit are on the blog if you're interested in reading them. I'm going to try and just quickly summarise, quickly he says after waffling on for 2.5 minutes already, quickly summarise my memories of this comic and what's made me want to read it now as an adult. And then after all the reviews of each issue are all over and done with, we'll make another video, a longer one, summing up how the comic holds up today. So I'm very much looking forward to seeing how Wildcat holds up. Now, full disclosure, I have read a couple of these before, it was about 5 years ago, when I wrote an article about the comic for the blog. And it was quite a lengthy thing because there was nothing about this comic, apart from the occasional paragraph here or there. There's nothing about Wildcat online. So I did my research and found out what I could about it. But this series of reviews now is going to be 12 issues plus the preview, plus a summer special and a winter special, neither of which I got as a kid. When Wildcat finished, it merged into Eagle. I didn't follow it into the merged comic. I have had the whole Wildcat series sitting here now, I think, for about 18 months. But because I want to do one comic at a time, I've had to sort of look where I can fit it in. Now I'm holding this up as issue 1 here, as you can see. However, I have not read that, have not opened it. The only last time I opened it was 5 years ago. I read it and I think maybe issues 2 and 3. I can't remember from that original article. All I read at the minute is this. I'm not opening that. I'm not opening it. Wildcat is set in almost the year 2500. And the world's leaders have ignored the science that the planet is about to be destroyed. Sound familiar? Of course it does. The comic itself follows hundreds, not millions, not tens of thousands, not thousands, hundreds of Earth survivors as they travel across the stars searching for a new planet. That is the basis of the comic. I will go into further detail as more of the story comes to light. You can definitely read more about that in the preview review that's up on the blog at the minute. As I say, this is about my memory, you know. So, my memories of this comic and what I'm looking forward to, the feel of it. It was exciting, it was original, it was something brand new. The other comic I was collecting, Oink, was obviously brand new, but it was my first comic. Big Comic Fortnightly was a reprint title, loads and loads of reprints of old comic strips from the 70s and early 80s, I think going back to the 60s as well, of very famous comics. And then I had Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends, believe it or not, at the same time, and the Real Ghostbusters licensed comics. So Wildcat was the first brand new original comic since I started collecting Oink, and it was an adventure comic. So this was a brand new adventure, brand new characters. And it's those characters that were ingrained on me ever since the comic. Turbo Jones, the leader. However, it was the other characters who really stood out to me. Kitten McGee, the female lead in her own strip. We had Loner, who, as Barry Tomlinson, the editor himself, told me, he wanted to create a female lead and a black lead in their own strips because they just weren't in comics at the time, and it was about time they were. And then we had Joe Alien, who was the last of his race, from what I remember, a race whose brains, they become so intelligent, they sought knowledge, but they sought it so much that their brains outgrew their heads, and they have this sort of clear, see-through extra brain, or maybe it's a large brain at the back. We'll answer that query later. Each fortnight then, there were 4 teams on the planet exploring and seeing if they could actually live there or not. And then there was another series, or sort of an anthology kind of series, dealing with completely different characters every week, set back on the fantastically designed Wildcat spacecraft. I remember loving Loner and Kitten McGee the most. Their strips were just really original. They spoke to me because here were heroes, the likes of which, weren't really on TV or in comic books for us at the time. And I do remember, now I do know now the name of the artist, David Pugh, but back then I didn't. Credits weren't forthcoming at the time. But the artwork on Loner, I remember that in particular wowing me as a kid, spending the detail in that artwork. I'm so looking forward to delving into that again, seeing it all and not just a couple of selected highlights from a few years ago. Since, in the last few years since I wrote that article, Rebellion now have the rights to all these old comics, and they have released 2 graphic novels so far. One is the Turbo Jones collection, one is the Loner collection. I have not read either of these. I have had this since it came out a few years ago, and I've had this since I think sometime, maybe 2 years ago, and this since sometime last year. I knew I was collecting Wildcat, and when I got these, I didn't think it was going to take that long to collect them. And I wanted to read their individual stories in the comic first, and then use these graphic novels to read all the stories that were in Eagle afterwards that concluded their tales. Once we get through all 12 issues of that, there'll be a little gap, and then I'm going to devour these and see how, just for the first time in my life, 32 years later, find out how these stories actually finished. Now, of course, the story of Wildcat itself wasn't able to be finished. Barry has since told me that the idea was that they were going to be on this planet for a while, and then realised that they couldn't settle there and go and look for another planet, another one, if the comic had lasted many years. Other things I'm looking forward to as well, how the stories got deeper and deeper as they went along. I distinctly remember certain aspects of it which you think one thing, and later on down the story it's the complete opposite. It liked to play with our expectations as kids, go on to a planet, meet monsters, defeat them, fight them, blah blah. That pulls you in, but there's so much more to those stories, and that excited me even more. Another thing I remember is the Christmas cover. We will get to that. Wildcat spacecraft wrapped inside a Christmas pudding. I'm not kidding you. It's an Ian Kennedy cover as well, the legendary Ian Kennedy of various Fleetway comics and Commando and everything. Yes. So I can remember that cover. I can't remember if it's explained inside. I'm guessing it's a dream or some kind of vision. I don't know. I was gutted when it ended as a kid. But at least now I know that for 2 of the characters I can finish the stories, and hopefully the other stories will be collected together as well. This Thursday, right there, you'll see a review of this. Till then, stay safe. I'll see you soon.
Who eat pigs? 'Cause they're made from ham. Eat the nasty butcher man. Pigs in daytime, pigs at night. If you read Oink, you'll be alright. 'Cause pigs will know that you're okay. 'Cause the pigs are here to stay.